it was through that momentum of all different people coming to the forefront that pressured the political people at play to take a different course. And it wasn't easy because each politician of that time had to actually fight the internal fights amongst their own colleagues and educate them along with the public. And let me tell you, the assault was vigorous and it was downright awful. There were times. And people paid a political price for it. Let me just identify one. Former Mayor Philip Owen. I believe that he lost his seat as the mayor of Vancouver because of internal fights over harm reduction initiatives and over the establishment of a safe site. I myself was attacked relentlessly. I have never experienced this in my 10 years, more than 10 years in politics. There were public ads taken out on radio where people attacked me for being a drug dealer. There were posters all over Chinatown saying that Jenny Kwan sells drugs. And it's kind of, well, astounding, I'm going to tell you. I walked down the street and people almost wanted to spit at me. And that was the reality of what we faced. But in spite of that, at that time, the three levels of government came together and said, it is time for collaboration, it is time for courage, and it is time to do something different. And we fought like crazy to get the safe site in place, to get harm reduction initiatives in place, and to get the 4 pillars initiatives in place. By the time we actually got to the place where we can trust each other, to talk like human beings, and set the partisan politics aside, as we all came through difficult little struggles. Some of us actually lost our seat in terms of that table. I was no longer a cabinet minister, Philip Owen, as I said, was no longer the mayor, and Henry Kwan at the time was the federal representative, was replaced by someone else. But the fight was vigorous, and in fact the community was so incredibly aggressive on this that there was a group called Community Alliance that came forward. And their mission was, and let me just quote, recent harm reduction activities undertaken by groups supported by the City of Vancouver and the Vancouver-Richmond Health Board threaten to completely erode the basic rights and freedoms of the people who live and work in those neighborhoods. Drug injection sites, needle exchanges, drug centers, and or any other non-treatment resources cannot be located in the downtown neighborhood. And they just went in full force to attack the politicians who supported harm reduction. People pressed on, and water under the bridge, so to speak. We saw the establishment of a safe site, and we were thrilled. And we had thought it didn't matter who was standing at the podium to open the safe site. The fact is, the job got done, and we thought we had achieved what was important for our community. Little did we know, actually, when the federal election, and there were 2 cycles of federal elections, you'll recall, that came about, Stephen Harper and the Conservatives became the minority government. And as Thomas had outlined, there were a series of temporary exemptions that came into play, where the safe site and the exemption for Section 56 was only temporarily renewed. The last exemption came with conditions. Conditions that just takes your breath away. Because it should be noted that they said, the federal government said, further research could be completed to examine the impact of safe site on the basis of treatment and prevention. Now let us just say this, and to be clear about it, that the safe site was never set up as a crime reduction initiative. Was it never ever meant to be one to target crime on the streets? Would anyone think that it is appropriate to measure the success of neurosurgeons based on the decrease in gangland shootings? Like, would people think that's appropriate? Would you ever accept the notion that medical interventions for cancer is inconclusive because it failed to cure cancer, and that further research is required within 1 year? Otherwise, the government would ban the treatment and medical practices for cancer patients. Can you just imagine that for a moment? Not on your life, and we know what that answer is for medical treatment for cancer patients. But not so when it comes to those who are addicted to drugs. Why is that? And some of the most marginalized people in our society society who depend on that medical treatment will be denied that medical treatment. Why? Because of political ideology. And that is clear. Thomas' presentation has said it all in terms of what Stephen Harper is about. In essence, Stephen Harper and his government has done in turn, turned the victory of the decades of a fight that evolved from a social movement to become a political movement, to a medical movement, to a scientific movement now, into an ideology, where he's putting ideology ahead of science. And as Thomas identified, the signs of what was coming from Stephen Harper was not good. I mean, to be clear, prior to the election, Stephen Harper was on record opposing the statement. On August 14, 2006, Stephen Harper refused to attend the International Conference on AIDS, hosted in Canada, in Toronto. And worse yet, the government, the conservative government, then began to question the integrity of the scientists behind their research. I have never heard of such a thing for politicians to do that. Now, Stephen Harper is an economist, I'm granting that. Maybe he knows something about economy, but, anyway, let's not go too far. But let's just say this. Let me just say this, and let me put this question to you. Is he qualified as a person to question the scientific knowledge and expertise of what came out of the research around the safe site? He used every trick in the book. He got your taxpayers, your tax dollars, hired more researchers, hired more people to try to refute the findings of the safe site. And I have to say, it didn't help very much. It only further to discredit his perspective. So the fight for the safe site goes to challenge, I think, the long-established, accepted practice of scientific research, peer-reviewed studies, and its findings. And frankly, at risk here is the foundation of our scientific institutions. Along with that, it puts to question the very root of what defines us as Canadians. Stephen Harper has a choice. He can validate the cherished Canadian value that everyone, even those most marginal in our community, is a citizen and they deserve medical treatment when they need it. Or he could put his ideology ahead of science. Political ideology that will trump science, medicine, and humanity. So the question before us today, amongst all of you, will we sit by and accept that? Or will we do something about it? And challenge that government to do what is right and leave the scientific community alone, and to ensure that every citizen in our country is treated with respect and dignity, and when they need medical treatment, the fight that the people before us fought so hard for medical treatment for all, universal medical treatment, and that applies also to the most marginal people in our community. Thank you so much for inviting me.